I've been sitting here for hours, trying to write this down before I forget who I am, before I forget which memories are mine. I should start at the beginning, if there still is a beginning. The apartment was cheap. That should have been my first warning. But in this market, you don't question good fortune. You just sign the lease before someone else does. The real estate agent mentioned the previous tenant had left suddenly, something about a family emergency. I barely listened. I was too busy calculating how much I'd save compared to my old place. The apartment wasn't special. That's what makes this worse somehow. Just a standard one-bedroom on the third floor, beige walls that needed repainting, wooden floors that creaked in predictable places. The kind of place you'd walk past 1,000 times without looking twice. I remember the day I moved in because it was raining, and the moving company charged extra for having to cover all my furniture. That memory is mine. I'm certain of it. The first month was normal, completely, utterly normal. That's important to understand. Just me, settling into a new place, starting a new chapter. I remember the exact moment I started to feel at home. I was standing in the kitchen, morning sunlight streaming through the window, coffee machine gurgling contentedly. The last moving box had finally been emptied, broken down, and recycled. My coffee mug, the blue one with the chip on the rim, sat on the counter exactly where it belonged. Everything was in its right place. Everything was perfect. The only odd thing was the mail that kept coming for Ashley Chen. Bills mostly, some magazines, a few personal letters. I did what anyone would do, marked them, returned to sender, and dropped them back in the outgoing mail. Looking back, I should have noticed how my handwriting changed each time I wrote those words. How sometimes the letters would flow in loops and curves I'd never used before. But you don't notice things like that, do you? Not until it's too late, but they kept coming. Every day, another piece of Ashley Chen's life would land in my mailbox. Department store catalogs, alumni newsletters, birthday cards from friends. Each time I'd add them to the growing pile on my kitchen counter, telling myself I'd deal with them properly tomorrow. Maybe track down a forwarding address. Some days I'd catch myself studying the envelopes, wondering about the person whose life kept arriving in paper installments. That's when things began to feel off. I started finding things in the apartment that I couldn't remember buying. A small ceramic bowl on the kitchen counter that I used every morning for keys and spare change. A throw pillow on the couch that perfectly matched the rug. When did I buy that rug? The more I tried to remember, the more my head hurt. And I started having strange dreams. Nothing dramatic at first, just fragments that felt more like memories than dreams. Sitting at my kitchen table, but the walls were a different color, walking through my bedroom at night, but the furniture was arranged differently. Little things that made me wake up disoriented, unsure for a moment which version was real. I started noticing other things too, small things. The way my hand would automatically reach for the light switch in the dark. How I knew exactly which floorboards would creak before I stepped on them. The perfect spot to jiggle the bathroom doorknob when it's stuck. Then came the morning I found myself ordering a soy latte with honey at Cornerstone Coffee. I never drink soy milk. I hate honey in coffee, but the barista smiled and said, "The usual then?" I found myself nodding as if I'd ordered it 100 times before. The drink tasted familiar in a way that made my stomach turn. It was delicious. It tasted like every morning for the past 2 years. That night, I started going through Ashley Chen's mail more carefully. Each envelope felt like a puzzle piece, building a picture I was afraid to see. Credit card statements showed purchases at stores I'd started frequenting without knowing why. The alumni newsletter mentioned a graduation year that stirred memories of a ceremony I'd never attended. A birthday card referenced an inside joke that made me laugh before I realized I shouldn't understand it. I called the real estate agent, asking casually about the previous tenant. She hesitated before answering, her voice careful. I'm not really supposed to discuss other tenants, but, well, it was strange. Ashley Chen had lived there for 3 years when she suddenly broke her lease. Left most of her furniture, didn't leave a forwarding address. The police did a check but said there was nothing suspicious about the situation. People do odd things sometimes. I tried to research her online, thinking maybe if I could find out where she'd gone, I could stop whatever this was. But the more I looked, the stranger things became. Her social media accounts showed recent activity. Photos posted from places I knew I'd been, wearing clothes I knew I owned, comments and interactions with friends I'd never met but whose voices I could hear in my head. One night, I woke to the sound of typing. The desk lamp was on in the living room, casting a warm glow under the door. I knew I hadn't left it on. As I approached, I could see someone sitting at my desk, head bowed, fingers moving across the keyboard. Dark hair falling forward, obscuring their face. My heart should have been pounding, but it wasn't. Because I recognized the way she sat, the rhythm of her typing. I'd been watching her do this every night for the past week in memories that weren't mine. I called out, "Ashley?" The typing stopped. She turned and I saw my own face looking back at me. When she smiled, I felt my own lips move in perfect synchronization. I jerked awake with a gasp, sheets damp with sweat and tangled around my legs. The dream felt too vivid, too present. My hands were still trembling as I threw clothes into a bag, called the first hotel I could find, and drafted a lease termination notice. I had to get out, had to escape whatever was happening to me. As I was leaving, I grabbed my blue coffee mug with the chipped rim, but stopped mid-motion. I remembered buying it, except I hadn't. She had. Ashley Chen on a rainy Saturday at a craft fair in the park. The potter had knocked $5 off the price because of that chip, and she'd laughed, saying it gave the mug character. I dropped the mug. It shattered on the kitchen floor, and something in my mind shattered with it. Suddenly, I remembered everything. The day Ashley Chen moved in, the way she arranged her furniture, her morning routine, her favorite takeout orders, her phone calls with her mother, her late nights working at the kitchen table, her growing unease. This morning, another piece clicked into place. A letter in my mailbox, addressed simply to the next tenant. The handwriting was mine, or Ashley's, or whoever's I am becoming. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I know exactly what it says, just like I know exactly how this ends. Because I'm starting to remember writing it on a day very much like today, when I was still someone else, sitting at this same desk, trying to warn the next person who would become me. I should leave, pack my bags and run. But I know I won't, because I remember not leaving. I remember staying. I remember becoming. I remember everything now, even the memories I haven't made yet.